Sheila Polk was going to be our speaker on the 203 problem. And I would like to read to you what she wanted me to say to you today. I apologize that I am unable to personally speak at today's meeting. I received a call yesterday morning asking that I participate in a press conference in Phoenix today with Senator Kyle and other Republican leaders to announce our joint opposition to Proposition 203. I am the statewide representative of all the 15 elected sheriffs and all the 15 elected county attorneys, of all of whom have united to announce our opposition to Proposition 203. I know that you will enjoy all that Dr. Gogek presentation and benefit from his vast knowledge of marijuana and addiction issues. In introducing Dr. Gogek, he is a psychiatrist here in Prescott for the last 20 years. He works for the Addiction, formerly wrote a column when he was writing. His journalist is brother on addiction and mental health issues. Individually keep as drug-free. He is opposing and is representing Matt Force today. So please welcome Dr. Gogek.
Hi, I'm Ed Gogek. Yes, I'm an addiction psychiatrist, which is what got me involved in this. I'm standing in for Sheila Polk. The reason Sheila isn't here is John Kyle and John McCain are doing a press conference supporting us, and they said we want the best person in the state who understands this and who speaks well. And so Carolyn Short, who runs our organization called Sheila, and said, we want you here. So that's why she's there. She couldn't really say no. Anyway, I want to talk about Proposition 203, so-called medical marijuana. The main thing you need to know about it is they want us to think it's about medical care, and it isn't. The Arizona Republic got it right. They said the whole medical argument is a smokescreen. It's a backdoor route to legalization. And what we found, you can't find records everywhere, but the places that you do, in Montana, about 3% of the people who receive medical marijuana have the serious illnesses that they said it was for. In San Diego, where they looked at it, it's about 2%. Most of the people are under 35 and in really good health. Much better health than I have. In fact, in San Diego, 3/4 of all the medical marijuana recipients are under age 40, which is not the group of people most likely to have serious illness. And you know, what I keep saying is, and they in all their speeches, the pro-marijuana folks keep saying it's about serious illness. And what I say is, if somebody tried to sell you a shirt that was 98% polyester, 2% cotton, and called it a cotton shirt, you wouldn't buy that. I'm quite certain they intentionally designed it this way. New Mexico has a law that was passed by its own state legislature. It has very strict controls. It has a medical review board. About 2,000 people have been prescribed marijuana for their illnesses there. They're estimating that if this passes in Arizona, we'll have about 66,000 patients. And it basically has loopholes that other states have. They keep saying it's different from California. It's not. It has the same loopholes in Montana and California. I'll just tell you what those are. There's two things that make up the loophole. One part is the diagnosis of pain. You know, they list all these serious illnesses that you can't fake. You can't really fake cancer. You can't fake glaucoma very well. They can test for that. But it includes severe and chronic pain, and that pain can be anything. It can be, there's somebody who actually got prescribed marijuana because their high heels hurt. And that's for real. We love telling that story. The basic thing about pain is it's easy to fake, it's impossible to disprove. The second part of the loophole is what's happening in other states is doctors, who I consider pretty unethical, are setting up marijuana practices where basically they see people all day long for medical marijuana evaluations. The visits can be as short as 5 minutes, and then they give them a card. They charge $150, and I've looked at it, some of them have made like $1 million a year doing this, but it's a little unethical. But the problem is, this law permits that. And these guys advertise, they have sign spinners out there, they put up their signs on the beach, they have 24/7 specials, weekend specials. If I did that with OxyContin or Xanax, I would lose my license, I'd probably go to jail. But they sneak this thing into this law that allows that to happen. So that's why I say they basically intentionally designed this. It's a backdoor route to legalization. So I want to talk about some of the actual problems with this. Most of us have heard for years that marijuana is helpful for glaucoma. But earlier this year, the Glaucoma Foundation actually came out with a warning. And they told people, do not use marijuana for glaucoma. It can make it worse. It can cause spikes in intraocular pressure. It can decrease blood flow to the optic nerve. It can actually cause people to lose their vision sooner. And what they've done is, this is backed by a group called the Marijuana Policy Project. They're not doctors, they're not medical people, they're not research. They basically represent pot smokers. And they're using this whole idea of it being medical. And there are some people who are definitely benefit medically from marijuana. I'm not saying that. But they're way overselling. And what they're doing is a bit of information comes out and they just run with it. And that's not the way medicines get approved. You know, there's all sorts of medicines that help a lot of people, but they cause problems. The FDA does not approve them, or if they do, they try to get them off their list as quickly as possible when that information comes out. They're basically just running with a very small amount of information. And as a doctor, I can tell you that it's dangerous. I don't even prescribe medicines the first year they're released, because I know what problems come up. So it's not good for glaucoma. The National Multiple Sclerosis Society does not recommend it, because in some ways it can make the symptoms of MS worse. The American Cancer Society, there's a whole article posted on their website that's called "Pot Smoking is Not the Best Choice to Treat Chemotherapy Side Effects." They say there's other medicines that are safer that work equally as well. They don't recommend it. And I've been doing a lot of debates with the campaign manager for Prop 203, and we'd really like to get him on the radio live. So we got him on the radio live, and I confronted him with all this stuff, and he just said, well, all this stuff is true. And then I went the next day, or not the next day, a few days later, I went to their website again, and the whole page where they claimed all these medical things was gone. But they're very good at that. My biggest complaint, my second biggest complaint, increased teenage drug use. And what they've seen in medical marijuana states is that it sends the message that this is an okay medicine for everyday aches and pains. And teenagers are actually quite smart about drugs. They will, even the ones who are into abuse, will abuse the ones they think are safe and stay away from the ones they think are dangerous. And so it sends the message that this is a safe medicine. Also, it makes it way more available. They interviewed kids and they say, oh, everybody I know either has a marijuana card or a good friend who has one, so anybody can get it. And so what they found is that states with medical marijuana laws have a much higher rate of teenage marijuana use. Up until 2006, it was about 20% higher, but in the past few years, it's gone to 30% higher. And what's actually happening now, I think, is that teenage marijuana use is decreasing throughout most of the country, except in the medical marijuana states where it's going up. For years, it was dropping in both, but dropping much faster in the states that don't have these laws. So, and my concern about this is, it's not a good drug for teenagers. And we know this stuff. We know that teens who smoke pot do worse in school, they're more likely to drop out, they're unhappier as adults. Now, I'm not talking about people who try it once, but people who use it once a month or more. And that's what they were looking at with this. And my estimate on this is that if this law passes, we'll have about 2,000 more dropouts every year in this state. The other objection is increased car accidents. It turns out marijuana is about as deadly behind the wheel as alcohol. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is that most people who drink have one drink and wait before they drive, whereas people who smoke pot smoke to get high. And the other is that pot is really strong these days, and a lot of people, it's like, they did one study where like 40% of the people admitted driving within an hour of smoking pot. And it's not a safe thing to have. It's not a safe thing to have on board when you're driving. In Montana, the number of fatal car accidents where the driver had marijuana in his bloodstream increased about 20 to 25% after they passed their law. In California, it doubled. So we can expect about 20 to 40 additional highway deaths a year if this passes. One other thing that should bother a lot of people is that they've put in all these special protections for people who are marijuana card holders, which is the name for people who get prescribed marijuana. So it'll be harder to prosecute them for DUI. Right now, if you're driving impaired and they pull you over and you test positive for marijuana, it's a DUI. Well, under this law, it's not. because you can't do it based on a test. It has to be solely on being impaired, and they're going to have to prove impairment. Lawyers can tell you that that's a little more difficult than proving that they have a positive blood test. And so it's going to make it harder to prosecute DUIs. The one that should bother people the most is it is harder to discipline an employee who comes to work under the influence. And again, it's the same thing. You can't just do a blood test. And this is new here. In all the other states with medical marijuana laws, you can't come to work high. But the way they do it here is you can't fire somebody or even send them home for the day just based on a blood test showing, they said, a small amount that's not enough to cause impairment, but nobody's decided what's the right amount to cause impairment. So this is going to be a big legal mess. And it means anybody. I mean, me, a school bus driver, a teacher, can't be sent home. The one that bothers me the most, and this is the thing that's happening in Montana, about 10% of all the people on probation and parole have marijuana cards. And what they've done is, addiction and substance abuse causes almost all the crime in this country. It's like 75 to 85%. And so these people get arrested, and the judges get the substance abuse history, and they order them to stay clean and sober and get treatment. And these guys run out and get a doctor to write them a card. They show it to the judge, and the Montana Supreme Court said, you know, it's medicine. We can't tell them not to do it. So there's no keeping people clean and sober. It stops rehabilitation in its tracks. And, you know, this is how people get clean and sober. Is, you know, a judge ordering them is one of the biggest ways. So, and they know that this will stop this. The Marijuana Policy Project wants to stop all forms of coerced treatment. It says that right on their website.